Welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands, the podcast that introduces you to the visionary founders of America's fastest growing franchise opportunities. We'll also hear from industry pros as they share what it really takes to achieve the elusive milestone of 100 plus locations. I am your host, Frank Fiume, founder of I9 Sports, and my 20-year journey from inception to acquisition has given me a unique perspective on how to succeed in franchising. Join me as we welcome today's guest. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. On today's show, I have the CEO of Melty, David Nibley. David, how are you today?
I'm doing so great. Thanks for having me, Frank. Glad to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you on the show, David. This is going to be exciting. All right. Yeah. Tell us, what is Melty?
Melty is, the simplest way to put it is gourmet grilled cheese. So we take that base level comfort food, the grilled cheese that we kind of all grew up with, and we do that really well, and then we layer on top of that and make amazing melty grilled cheese confections that are just delicious. So that's what we're based around.
Americana right there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
David, all right, so tell me, what were you doing before you became the CEO, I guess, and now owner of Melty?
So most of my career was in the creative world. I'm a graphic designer, animator, video producer. And so I found out about Melty. I had my own agency, a creative services agency, found out about Melty, thought it was such a cool concept, was actually invited to a tasting by the two founders who were just getting ready to open their first store. And they were trying to get some feedback on the concept and on the menu. And I thought the food was incredible. You know, like I mentioned, grilled cheese, foundational comfort food. There's such a nostalgia, I think, that's inherent with grilled cheese. I remember when I first heard about the concept, I was talking to a friend on the phone who told me about it. And I flashed to a time in my childhood when I was walking home from elementary school. I could imagine right where I was, kind of cracks in the sidewalk. It was a rainy day. And I remembered thinking, oh, Mom's going to have grilled cheese and tomato soup when I get home. And it's that just perfect combination of, buttery, toasty, cheesy, warm comfort food that we all grew up with. And I thought, wow, what a cool idea to take that and build a restaurant concept just around that. So went to that tasting, was blown away, and came on board as kind of the branding and marketing partner. I invested and took over marketing duties. I designed the brand. It was integral in coming up with and guiding the look of the stores, the different marketing collateral, and all those pieces that make up a brand. And so that went well for a while. There were two founders, and they were great, but as it turned out, they did not get along all that well. And as they got into business together, they kind of found these friction points and pushed on them, and I was kind of caught in the middle. Ended up playing referee and trying to figure that out over time, the drama that created. And, I know it's not uncommon for people to get into business together and then figure out there are issues here. So eventually they both stepped away. I bought them out. I believed in this brand, this concept, the menu. We had people that loved what we were doing. And so around that, this all started in 2012-ish. And I kind of became the CEO and took over in 2015, and from there worked on it as kind of a side hustle because I had my other agency, my creative agency, and tweaked it. Just worked on it. Worked on the menu. Worked on our processes. Worked on the brand and kind of streamlined it. And over time, just kept working on it until we got to a point where we felt like, this could be a franchise. I think we've got a good brand, a good system, a great menu. This could be something that we could share and other people could get involved in. And so around 2022 is when that really started in full force.
All right. When you started franchising, right? That's when you launched your first franchise. Now you guys have 6 franchises and 2 company-owned locations?
Correct. Yep. We've got 2 corporate stores here in Utah, and then we have 6 franchise locations around the country right now.
Yep. All right. You're across 4 states, right? Utah, Massachusetts, is it, Tennessee, and Virginia?
Correct. Yep.
Awesome.
We've got another 10 stores in active development right now. Hope to get all of those open this year. And so we're seeing some growth, some real interest in what we're doing here.
That's awesome. Well, what a whirlwind. I mean, you come in as the marketing guy and suddenly you're embroiled in, a couple partners that are not getting along. And inevitably, when you take over a company, it's hard enough when you take over a company, just when you have even founders that are supporting you. But here in this case, you kind of came into a situation where founders aren't getting along. You come into a business that's not even franchised yet. That's got to be wild considering you had your own creative agency at the same time.
Yeah.
A lot of people probably would have just said, you know what, I'm out of here. You saw something though really strong with Melty though, didn't you?
I did. It's that thing that I saw from the beginning, right? I just feel like this is something that resonates with people. And, I decided, okay, if these guys want to move on, that's probably best for the company. And they both kind of made that choice and we all agreed. And it was an amicable parting. And so that's good. But yeah, the core concept, the core menu, all of it, I still believed in and decided I'm going to keep this going and I'm going to grow it if I can.
I love the logo. I love the branding. Is that all your brainchild?
That's me. Again, that's where most of my career I spent working in that space. And so I love branding. I love design and I've had a lot of fun with this brand, not just the logo, but everything kind of around it. If you see, you can go kind of look at us at lovemelty.com. And you'll see just the food is beautiful. It's melty, cheesy, buttery, that toasted bread, and then the different ingredients that we add on that add color and depth to it. It's one of my favorite things when we open a store and people in the community have been waiting for it to open and they see the advertising and everything that it's coming. And then when they finally get in there and they look at the menu and it's beautiful and bright up on these screens and they go through and look at all the different melt options and they just get so excited to try it. They're like, oh boy, we're going to have to come back and try all of these. Yeah. It all combines for a brand to it really has some kick and some real appeal visually.
David, one of the really unique advantages, or I'd say one of the unique characteristics of your brand is that most of the CEOs I talk to don't necessarily have a marketing background or branding background. They maybe had a passion for the business and they started it and they had to go find marketing people. And it's always hard when you go through that process. But I would imagine you having the marketing and branding as your core foundation, it gives you a huge leg up when even working with franchisees and developing the growth of the company. Why don't we talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, even as we started franchising or before we started franchising, we would have people approach us assuming we were a national brand because of the look and feel of the store, of the brand, of the menus, of everything. And so I think, that was an advantage that not everybody has, as you mentioned. That was my background, so it was kind of baked in, and it gives me a lot of joy to work on that and develop that stuff. So I had a lot of fun with it, and it did give us a leg up going forward and starting the franchise because we were partway there, at least from a brand perspective. So and I really do enjoy. I'm not the best marketer, I'll admit, when it comes to strategy. I'm great when it comes to visuals, when it comes to design. So I've been lucky enough to get the help of other people who are experts in putting a strategy together. And then I get to go off and have fun and create the deliverables that map to that strategy. And we get a great collaboration that puts really good advertising and marketing out there.
Well, great branding. If I saw that logo before you franchised, I would definitely assume this was a franchise by the look of it. So great job on that.
Wow. Thank you. Man, that means a lot. Thank you.
All right. Well, look, we all make mistakes throughout our business. I love talking about issues and problems and how we get through it because truthfully, I want people to learn when they're watching the podcast. A lot of the folks that my audience are, they're either fellow founders or CEOs and they're trying to figure it out. I made plenty of mistakes myself. Is there something that you can kind of go back to in the earlier days where you said, man, if I do it all over again, I would have done this differently?
Yeah, boy, there's more than one. Definitely, we
Don't
do
we
all make
all?
mistakes. Yeah, we do make mistakes, and how you respond and learn from those mistakes is hugely important. I'd say one of them was in our initial process and how we made the grilled cheese, how we made the melt. We started with just a big bank of panini presses, and so just a flat panini press. You prep the sandwich, put it all together, put it on the press, and there were probably eight presses all in a row. We had to hire people who had quite a bit of experience, line cook experience, who could balance having different melts at different stages of the cooking process, don't want to burn them. And a lot of times the amount of ingredients we had on there made it hard to melt the cheese all the way through. And so we would have to do what we called searing the melt, which is we'd cut it in half and then turn it upside down on the grill so that
Okay.
the
Yep.
heat would go up inside it. It took, on average, when it wasn't busy, 8 minutes plus just to cook that thing. Then you add in prep time, you add in, expo time, putting the bigger orders together. It was a problem. And so we started with a process that really kind of put us behind and were causing big wait times. And we had to solve that problem. So we tried to figure out, okay, what can we do? There were a number of things that we tried. There was at the time a new press that had just been put out on the market that incorporated microwave technology so that it in the press would kind of microwave it at the same time as it was being grilled. We tested that. We didn't really love it because it made the bread a little soft,
Oh
soggy.
yeah.
You didn't miss that crispy, toasty, a little bit of a crunch that you get on a really good grilled cheese.
Mm-hmm.
So we tried a number of things. Eventually we ended up, one of our managers suggested this. We got an impinger oven, which is a conveyor oven, and you can control the heat and the airflow above and below that conveyor. And we put our sandwiches together open face on a quarter size, basically baking sheet.
Mm-hmm.
Butter up the bread really nice. They go through open face. The ingredients are on the top. The bread is on the bottom. It toasts perfectly. The ingredients on top get melted, heated. Everything is perfect. It comes out. We put it together, expo that thing. It's hot. There's more moisture in the bread because it only takes about a minute and 55 seconds to get through and cook that
Wow.
thing perfectly. So that was a mistake we made and a mistake we corrected. And now we have a system that's really easy. It makes it so we don't have to hire line cooks. We can hire like a Subway sandwich level of experience. If you can put the ingredients on the sandwich in the right order and put it in that conveyor oven, you're
Mm-hmm.
golden. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, that's one mistake that we corrected. And it kind of set the tone for the way that we developed our systems because we want to make something that is simple, that's gourmet level in the result that we get, but is streamlined and easy for anybody to pick up and do business with. So we look at that a lot in the ingredients that we get and the way that we put them together. We source from a nationwide supplier that gives us great ingredients that are available across the country, so we have consistency. But the way that we put those ingredients together is what makes it a kind of a gourmet level product. So it's easy, but really high quality.
And look, it ended up taking somebody really on the front line to figure out that solution, right? Isn't that
Yeah.
always the case?
Yeah. I mean, it was awesome. This guy, he's like, hey, what about this? And one of the other founders who was a chef was like, ding, light bulb went off and he's like,
Oh,
you got it, man. That's brilliant. Yeah.
damn, that's great. So, okay, so you take over in 2015, right? You don't franchise until 2022. I'm curious, How far in when you started running the company on location where you decided it? Because obviously you always looked like a franchise, but
Yeah.
when did you ultimately decide, hey, we're going to franchise this? This is how we're going to grow.
It's interesting because with the founders, originally the idea was to franchise it as soon as it made sense. So that
Hmm.
was kind of the mindset early on. We actually got our FDD put together early on before we even had a really well-defined and streamlined concept, but just with the assumption that this could be something that could be great for franchising. Then the drama happened with the partnership, and that delayed things quite a bit. And so when I kind of took it on as my side hustle on my own, it was about 7 years or so before I really felt that we could franchise it. And so I just, tweaked in that time frame, ran the business from a high level, got good managers to come in and manage the store, and just, worked on it. We were approached a number of times by franchise development groups, right, who would come in and say, you guys look like you could be a great franchise. Pay us a bunch of money. We'll get your legal stuff put together. We'll get you some manuals put together, and then you can go off and sell franchises. While I was
Wow, sounds so
flattered that
simple.
it sounds so simple. Yeah. While I was flattered that they thought that, I also saw their motivation, and, that's their business.
Sure.
And then I felt I can't go off and sell franchises by myself. I don't have that ability. I don't have that confidence in myself. I'm sure I'd mess that up. And so said no to that for, a few years, and then was approached by a different partner who wanted skin in the game, who had expertise in and experience in franchising. And so that is when we decided to franchise. We created a new entity and launched it together. And so I had a partner who knew the franchising world and could help me in that regard. I said, okay, I'll handle branding, I'll handle operations, you handle the franchise side of it, and we'll make a partnership.
That's smart. How did you find your first half dozen franchises? That's one of the most popular questions I get from emerging founders that are starting out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting, kind of atypical story, I'd say. I mean, our very first one came through a franchise broker. One thing I think you need if you're starting in this and you're going to go the traditional broker route to sell your franchise, one thing you need to be ready for is some massive commissions that you're going to pay. That
True.
was one thing I didn't realize, like, wow, the percentages you pay are pretty up there. Of course, they vary across the different brokers, but just be prepared for that and know that you've got to do that to kind of get the brand going and get it out there. But we did. Our very first one was in South Carolina and was an area representative, and we're lucky to get somebody who was in the restaurant industry and had familiarity with it. From there, we kind of got together, like I mentioned, this is atypical, with a group that sold that did financial seminars and motivational speaking, kind of a Tony Robbins type group. And they did mostly real estate investing, but they had lots of requests from their investors to find something that could provide quicker cash flow. And so what they ended up doing is saying, well, what you need to do for that is buy a business. And a good way to buy a business is to look at franchising. And so they liked our brand, and they started promoting us from the stage at their events. And we
Huh.
got a number of initial franchisees that way, people just looking for a different investment that could provide some cash flow. And we started that way. Our first, I'd say 7 or 8 were sold that way.
That's interesting. Would you mind sharing what group that was?
Yeah, a group called, the gentleman's name is Chris Crone.
Okay.
Um, and and spelled Chris with a K and Krohn with a K, Krohn. And yeah, very successful. We're here in Utah. He does events every year here. People come from all over the world, and he has
Hmm.
this beautiful event center that he fills up, and people talk investments. So we had a good partnership with them, and they're a great company. Yeah, it was really interesting, kind of atypical way to get started.
Awesome. That's different. I have not heard that before. Very cool. So, David, who is the type of person that really thrives in your franchise system as a franchisee?
So It's interesting. We've started with single unit franchisees who have really kind of wanted to find an investment for their family, more on a kind of a personal, this is something we're going to do for our family type of investor, right? And we've had some great successes there. Also seen some challenges because, as anyone in the restaurant industry will tell you, running a restaurant is not easy. There's some romanticism around being a restaurateur, right? Wow, I'd love to open a restaurant and serve great food and make people happy. And we definitely provide that opportunity, but it does require work. I think people often look for an opportunity that isn't quite necessarily a set it and forget it, but it's something they feel like, oh, this will be an investment that will kind of be over here. We'll keep up on it, but it'll just provide us with some discretionary income. And we actually require. I mean, like any restaurant, it requires some real time, especially initially as you're getting into it. You really need to learn the business. You got to put the time in. So we adapted to the way that we sold these units and emphasized that more as we went forward. We did, we've had most of our franchisees right now are in that kind of single unit, start off, see how it goes category. Mm-hmm. And they're doing great. We do feel like we're kind of coming into a new phase though, where we have multi-unit buyers coming in now and being interested. We're working on 2 deals in 2 different states right now that are bigger multi-unit deals like that. And we're excited about that. Excited about seeing these franchisees and franchise groups that have capital to put multiple units, and will build an organization around these multiple units on the from a high level on down. So we're kind of coming into a new phase, which is exciting as well.
Sure. I think the franchise game overall is changing from, 15, 20 years ago. It was so much more single unit, franchise owner, mom and pop buying a franchise, don't want to work for the man anymore. And they want to open their own business. And now the multi-unit operators, while it's always been around, it seems like there's a much more sophisticated franchise buyer that's out there. And even if it is a mom and pop, they have their eyes set on being a multi-unit owner now and not just owning one location.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's exciting. At the same time, we love these single unit franchisees. We are so grateful for the trust that they put in us, in the brand, and we see it as essential that we provide them that support that they're expecting as they come into a franchise situation.
Absolutely.
That is our mission. Our mission statement revolves around the franchise partner. That's what we call them, franchise partners, because that's really how we see them. And I look at us when I kind of put together a presentation for our team based on Lord of the Rings, right? So I'm a big fan, and I saw a real parallel in that the franchise partner out there on the front lines is like Sam and Frodo. The hobbits, they have the ring and they have to get it to Mount Doom. And then we, as the franchisor, we are kind of a collection of teams that supports them all the way. I'm the CEO. I guess I could be Gandalf. I'm kind of coordinating things, and we have different franchise teams that collaborate. The men of Rohan, the elves, they come together with their different duties and support the franchise. It's all about getting that franchisee to complete that mission. So that's how I look at it. And it's we do that for a single unit franchise just as much as we would with a multi-unit.
That's important. What is the investment range to open a location, and how big is a typical footprint?
Footprint ranges between 1,200 to about 1,800 square feet. We have some that are bigger, up into the 2,000, somewhere in there. We've for instance, there's one of the ones we have here right next to our offices it was a Subway that we took over as a second gen spot. We're able to keep basically the footprint in place, the layout in place, didn't have to move walls, didn't have to do much, and we're able to get in there. The build out itself was about $110,000. The all-in cost on that one, I believe, was about $290,000, $300,000 to get open. our FDD puts a range in there between about 280 to just under 700,000, but we've never seen anything go up into that range. I'd say the average, we're somewhere in the 350 range to get it open.
All right, fair enough. David, what's one of the big lessons you've learned in franchising that maybe has surprised you?
Oh boy.
Loaded
That is a
question, huh?
great question. Yeah. No, that is a great question. I would say, uh, so here's one that that we need to, we're always working on how we can improve this part of franchising, because when when someone's looking to buy a franchise, really kind of what they're looking for is a business in a box, to put it in very
Right.
simple terms, right? They want us to be able to hand them over a system that they can follow a little bit, kind of like paint by numbers. If we do this, this, and this, then we are going to succeed. And we found that even though that's the initial understanding, quite often a franchise partner will get into their day to day and doing things, especially if, once the store is open and they're doing things and they start trying to tweak things. They start trying to change things in ways they think could improve what they're doing. And I've been surprised at how often people will kind of deviate from the system that we put together that's proven and that works. And more often than not, those deviations will cause problems and will cause breakdowns in the system that's kind of meant to work. All these pieces work together to make the whole
Sure.
thing work. And so, I think we need to do a good job at educating our franchise partners on that aspect, on making sure that they understand that the system will work. We're very open to ideas. We love
Mm-hmm.
feedback from the franchise partners. Just yesterday we do an all hands meeting every month where all of them are on a call. We go through many different topics and gather feedback, and I love it. It's one of my favorite things every month. And we get fantastic ideas from them, and we will always consider those ideas. Many times we'll put them into a testing phase here, and depending on how that goes, they'll either become a part of the system or they won't, or maybe a version will. But I have been surprised at how often there will be kind of a little pushback, even not necessarily pushing back, just kind of doing their own thing. And it is
Yeah.
important to stay on top of that for brand consistency, quality, all of that.
Right, because ultimately we're trying to protect the brand, and that is including protecting them as well. Because if somebody had a next door neighbor that really deviated from the system, it could hurt them.
Absolutely.
So that's why
Yeah.
that's why it's there to protect them. But I always found franchising so unique, and obviously I wasn't expecting this as I got onto my franchise journey, about the importance though of the collaboration and the push. I always called it push pull between franchisor and franchisee. Believe it or not, I think that is the real strength in franchising, is that there is a natural and healthy push pull where we're pushing each other to make each other better. But as
Absolutely.
long as we're rowing in the same direction, think about championship teams of any of the major sports. It's not like it goes perfectly and all 25 guys on the roster are all agree with each other on everything. But they have one mission, that obviously is to win. And we have to recognize that there has to be some sort of guardrail, and there has to be a system at which that we're going to collaborate, we're going to hear ideas, we're going to test them, but we just can't test them on the fly, one off, because you're bored or you think there's might be one way of doing something better. There's got to be there has to be a good system for it, just because at the end of the day, people bought a system from you and your team.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I think we're small enough now, uh, where we can be a little more nimble when it comes to some of that stuff. But I think as we
Sure.
grow, it's going to be harder to approach those ideas and test them with as much speed. I mean, we just did one. We do an LTO every month, a limited time offer, a special, a different type of grilled cheese that goes out. So this month it's the Hawaiian, and it's actually been in the menu from the beginning, but we moved it into an LTO last year. It went out to our franchise partners, and there were a number of them that had never tasted it before. It went out there, and we got some feedback. You know what? This doesn't have, it's got cheese, it's got meat, it's pepper jack, mozzarella, ham, and then pineapple. And it's a delicious grilled cheese, but they said it's missing something. There's no sauce or anything. We have really delicious sauces that we make in-house that go on lots of our melts. So we looked at that and we said, you know what? You're right. We actually jumped on that, did some testing, and added teriyaki sauce to that melt.
Okay.
It's fantastic. And we, in our all hands meeting yesterday, we let everybody know we're doing a quick change. All the menus now will have a different photo, show the teriyaki, it'll all be changed. And we're able to do that really quickly. And they received new recipe card, new training video, all of that went out today. So, I think we're in a nice spot right now where we can be that nimble. Don't know that we'll always be able to be, but we will always try to be that responsive and pay attention to the feedback that we're getting, because that's how we're going to improve the brand. That frontline franchise partner feedback is where we're going to get the best ideas.
Absolutely. I love doing this podcast specifically with emerging founders, because that was my favorite time, believe it or not, was emerging, because we weren't very nimble. And personally, I had a lot more fun as a CEO being a speedboat than a cruise liner. When you become really big, you're making turns like a cruise ship, because you have to get everybody on board and everybody's buy-in, and there's committees and task force, and nothing wrong with that. That's what's needed when you're trying to make a change as being a cruise liner. But it's different mindset, and so these are the great times when you get to make changes on the fly, and obviously together, but you get to be more nimble. To me, that was the most fond memories for me.
I love it. And I would say that's some of our franchise partners, that they've seen where we are being a small emerging brand.
Right.
There's probably pros and cons to that. But one of the pros they
Definitely
see is like, hey, I could have some feedback in shaping this brand. And we're very clear about that. We're going to pay attention to you. And at this stage, their influence, I think, is pretty great. So it's fun. It is a real collaboration, and I love what we're doing together.
David, where's this brand going over the next 5-10 years? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we want to have close to 200 locations within 5 years. That's our plan right now. Like I mentioned, we should have, our growth's been pretty great over the last couple of years. We opened, as we were ramping up, we opened one franchise in 22, one in 23, and then all of the prep work kind of finally paid off in 24, and we opened 6, and we have 10 in development right now. Probably will open 12 or so this year, looking at 20 plus the following year, and it just kind of grows from there, and would love to have close to 200 by 2029.
Wow. Well, the rocket ship is about to take off. I feel it.
I love it. From your lips to God's ears. We'll take it.
Well, I know this is a loaded question, but why is now a great time for somebody to join Melty and be part of this brand?
Oh, that is a great question. I think there are a few reasons. One, look, the sandwich industry in the U.S. is a big industry. Last year, I believe it was about a $46 million industry. It's been growing steadily every year. COVID actually did great things for it. And over the past 5 years, it's grown 10%. It grows an average of 2% a year. There's a lot in that industry. I think, though, we found something that's unique. We're not a sub shop. We're not a bakery. We focused in on that grilled cheese and have created something, I think, really fun and different in the sandwich space. So I think it's, you see trends. We saw cookie trends, kind of the dessert trends. We feel like There's an element of trendiness to what we're doing because it's kind of new in the sandwich industry, but we feel like it's got legs because it's a full meal. It's not something like a dessert that might be a little more trendy. We feel like it's something we provide a full meal, and we're always innovating and making it more delicious, more interesting. So there's that. And then we feel like we really do, when I started it and tweaked it and got along to start franchising, I felt like we were in pretty good shape. And then I built this, it's a pretty small executive team at this point. There's just 5 of us. We have an amazing director of operations, an amazing franchise business coach and trainer. And these guys have rich, deep history in the restaurant industry and working with different franchise brands. And the improved version of Melty now, as opposed to 2-3 years ago, I mean, it's amazing the progress that we've made bringing people in. And the systems that I thought were great to begin with are twice as great as they were now. It's tighter. We have an amazing training program. We've got incredible content. And one thing that I was really gratified by when I brought these industry professionals in to work with me, who was a part-time creative guy doing restaurants part-time, they looked at our systems and said, wow, comparatively, this is a very simple system. Compared to lots of other franchise food concepts, what we have is simple, easy to learn, easy to run. And, again, that a perfect illustration of it is the way that we cook those melts. It's fast, it's a tight process, and it's easy to get consistency and quality and speed for our customers. So
Yeah.
those are a couple of, I think, great things. Just overall, it's a great industry, and we have a great little niche we're building within that big industry. And then we have really great systems, really great food for somebody to come in and take that business in a box and make it theirs.
And grilled cheese is definitely not a fad, for sure.
No, grilled cheese it's been around for a long time. Yeah, and we make it awesome.
Awesome. All right. Well, David, if someone was interested in opening their own Melty franchise, where would they go?
You could go to meltyfranchise.com. You can also go to Love Melty, which is our main site. That's where you'll see our menu and lots of really great things. But meltyfranchise.com, which you can get to through the main site, will get you set up. There's a lot of great content on there that'll educate you about the franchise opportunity, and then that will allow you to get in contact with us so we can continue the conversation.
All right. Awesome. All right. I got one last question for you. I finish every podcast with the franchise tip jar. And I got a question for you. And that's this. What advice would you give your past self the night before you became a franchisor?
It's such a good question. It's going to be, I don't want to be a downer, but this is ultimately a very positive thing to realize. It's going to be harder than you think it is. Even if you have a franchise partner who's coming in and has the experience on that side of things, getting a franchise up and running takes a lot. You want to do it right. You want to have the resources in place for the franchise partners. You want to support them the right way. The core concept needs to be really dialed in and working for you to start franchising. Not that you won't always be improving, but it needs to be to a certain level. So just realize that the work is about to get harder, not easier, as you get into franchising in a very rewarding way. But just, brace yourself. You're going to have to commit a lot to it. The rewards will be great, but knowing that going in, I think, is helpful.
I think so. We have to remember at the end of the day is when we're in franchising, we are in it for the long game. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme if you go into franchising as a franchisor. This was a way for you to be able to expand your business and your brand, but it doesn't mean we're just going to start selling franchises. They're going to be opening, and there's going to be challenges along the way. But that's what I love about business. I love that it's difficult because if it was so easy, everyone would do it, and competition would get even that much harder, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. I will say I have had, some of the most stressful times and some of the most literally tears of joy inducing wonderful times being a franchisor just for these few short years. I know there's so much more amazingness to come. I'm proud of this brand, proud of what we can offer to our franchise partners and ultimately to their customers. You know, it is such a rewarding, and the things that are hard are the most rewarding, right? I think we can all
Totally
agree to that. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Well, David, thank you so much for being on today's show. It was great to meet you, and I wish you all the continued success with Melty, and hopefully you'll be opening a location in the Tampa Bay area someday soon.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks for what you're doing, Frank. It's such a great resource to have this podcast and to have you guide these founders through these conversations with your amazing experience. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.